Hi everyone, welcome to Calculus 2. My name is Mira Skandar. I'll be your instructor for this course. I'm very excited to be working with you, and hopefully this semester goes well and we won't have any problems. I want to start this course with an introduction video. I'm going to go over the syllabus, lecture schedule. I'll show you the Lumen website where we're going to have our online videos. I'll do a quick review at the end of this video, reviewing some stuff from pre-calculus and calculus 1 that are very useful in calculus 2. Okay, so let's start with the syllabus. This syllabus is posted on Brightspace. You should be able to access it. If you have any problems, let me know. Okay, I want you to read through the syllabus. If you have questions, contact me, but I'm gonna go over some of the things in the syllabus and give you a bit more details. So first of all, this course covers like main 3 topics: integration, series, and towards the end we're gonna discuss parametric equations and polar coordinates. The textbook that we're using is gonna be Calculus Volume 2. Once you click on the link, you should be able to get onto this website. This is the table of contents. If you click on one of the topics, for example, you're going to access that section with all of the material for that section explained in details. There's also extra problems towards the end of this section that could be very useful because math is all about practice. So practice, practice, practice. Okay, and like I said, we're going to use Lumen for online assignments. We're going to have 6 online assignments on Lumen. And you can read the topics that we're going to cover in this class. As you all know, this class is asynchronous, which means that we're not going to meet at the same time. I'll be posting these videos, so make sure to keep up with these videos because I know that it could be very overwhelming if you have like 4 or 5 videos to watch all at once. So I'll be posting a video each day, so that way you won't feel pressured on like watching multiple videos on the same day. Okay, so the online homework is Lumen, and I should mention that the lowest homework grade will be dropped from the final grade computation. The other type of homework that we have is written assignments, which are basically like worksheets. The purpose of these worksheets is I want to see your work. I want to see your steps that you're doing to get your answers in the end and give you advice if you're having problems with it or just give you feedback in general. We're going to have 3 in total, and the lowest assignment grade will be dropped too. Now, regarding exams, we're going to have 1 midterm and a cumulative final. The midterm is going to be in the after 3 weeks, and I'll talk more about that once I get to the lecture schedule. The grading policy is also posted on the syllabus. Please make sure to read it through. If you have any questions, I can discuss it with you. Oh, also, office hours are going to be by appointment. I think it's just easier since we have like different time zones. I know that some students are visiting from different universities, so I think it would be easier just to email me and we'll find a time that works for both of us and we can meet then. Oh, quick note about the exams. Exams are going to be proctored, so they're going to be at a specific time. But obviously, if you have problem with that time, just email me before the exam and I'm sure we can work something out. Okay, so now let's talk about the lecture schedule. I wanted the class to be like structured, like each week will be the same. So we're gonna have 5 videos each week. covering certain sections, like stated here in the lecture schedule. And we're going to have the online homework due every Sunday, and the written assignments due every other week. All of the dates are posted on the lecture schedule. Read them through. If you have any concerns, let me know. The midterm is going to be the first Monday of the 4th week. It's going to cover chapter 1, 2, and 3, homework 1, 2, and 3, the online homework, which is the Lumen homework. And we're going to cover written homework 1 and part of written homework 2. I'll post obviously more details about it before the midterm. Also, these are all links that you can just press and get to the section in the book directly. So I thought that would be useful for you. And the final is, like I said, cumulative, which means everything is included in the final. Okay, now I want you guys to try and do, let me get to the content. Once you press on the online homework tutorial, this is just like a practice homework for Lumen. Please make sure to click it. Make sure that you can access the homework normally with no problems. If any problems came up, just let me know and we'll work it out together. Okay, now let's start with a quick review. It's just like main concepts that I'm sure you already know. I just wanted to review them because they're going to show up a lot during our problem solving in Calc 2. And the main topic that you should know is derivatives. I'm sure you've learned about derivatives in Calc 1. So the first definition of a derivative is just the limit definition. This is not very common to use during solutions in Calc 2. It's just a quick review that you can have in mind. Obviously, we have these simple properties of derivatives where you can distribute the derivative if you have a plus or minus, and you can take the constant out if you have a constant inside of your derivative, and the derivative of any constant is always 0. These are the main rules that we use to derive. I'm sure you know them: product rule, quotient and chain, and power rule. And these are the common derivatives that all of you should memorize. Okay, the next topic that we're going to go over is even and odd function. So f of x, which is my function, is called an odd function if I plug in negative x inside of my function and I get minus multiplied by my original function. And a function is called even if I plug in negative x inside of my function and I get the original function that I started with. Okay, so let's do quick examples to make sure that you understand this concept. So for example, if I have f of x is x cubed. If I plug in negative x inside of x cubed, I'm just substituting negative x instead of x. Now we can distribute the cube, obviously. Negative 1 cubed, x cubed. Now negative 1 cubed is just minus x cubed, but x cubed is just f of x. So this is minus f of x. So we got f of negative x is equal to minus f of x, which means f of x is odd. So x cubed is odd. For the second example, we're going to repeat the same exact process. We're just going to plug in negative x instead of our x. And similarly, distributing the power. Here we have negative squared, so that's just positive. So we're going to get x squared. Plus, similarly, negative to the 4th power is also positive, so we're going to get x to the 4th. But this is just f of x, the function that I started with, which means this function is even. And lastly, if we try the third example, once we plug in negative x inside of it, we're going to get negative x plus 1. So here the problem is, no matter what I do, whether I take a negative as a common factor, I'm not going to get the original function that I started with, which is x plus 1. So when in this case, we say that the function is neither odd or even. Okay, now I'm sure that you've seen these identities before. These identities are pretty helpful, especially in integration once we start doing integration. So make sure that you're familiar with them, you're comfortable with them. So for example, even though this identity is sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1, if I subtract sine squared to the other side, this is just cosine squared x is equal to 1 minus sine x squared. So we can come up with different identities, even though they're the same, but look different, that would help us to solve like different problems. So these identities are very important in Calc 2. Also make sure to remember that if we have a right angle triangle, which means I have a angle of 90 degrees in the triangle, we have some ratios for the trig functions. So a hypotenuse, just keep that in mind. If I have a 90-degree angle, the hypotenuse is always the opposite side. So if you have an angle theta in that triangle, you have an adjacent, opposite, and a hypotenuse, you can find the values of sine of theta, cosine of theta, and so on using these side. So for example, sine of theta is just the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and so on. So this is all pre-calc. I'm sure you already know all of this. I just wanted to make sure that I review the main things that we're going to cover mainly during our Calc 2 solutions. Also, something very important is the unit circle. So it's very difficult to memorize all of these points. So the easiest way to deal with it is just take the first quadrant, memorize all of these points, and using these points and these values, you can easily find other points on the unit circle. Using the fact that any point in the first quadrant is always positive for x and y. In the second quadrant, it's always negative, positive, where x is negative. Then third quadrant is negative, negative. And then the fourth quadrant is positive, then negative, and y is negative. Also remember that if I have a point with an x and a y, this x represents cosine and this y represents sine. So for example, if I want to find sine 3 pi over 4. Now, 3 pi over 4 is in the second quadrant, but I don't want to memorize that point. So what you do here, you go to the reference angle. So the reference angle for 3 pi over 4 is just pi over 4. So this is just sine pi over 4. But is it positive or negative? So here you use the fact of positivity and negativity of the point or the coordinate. So sine, we said it's the y, and the y value is positive in the second quadrant. So this is plus, which is positive. And we already know that sine pi over 4 is just the y coordinate of this point. So this is just positive radical 2 over 2. Similarly, cosine, we know that the reference angle for 5 pi over 4 is just pi over 4. But is it positive or negative? Once again, 5 pi over 4 is in the third quadrant, and since cosine, which is the x-coordinate, is negative, this is going to be negative. You go to the point of pi over 4, you take the x-coordinate, so this is just negative radical 2 over 2. So for sine and cosine, it's pretty easy because you already have the points. You can easily find it from the unit circle. But what if I have a tan? So here, we're going to use the identities. Using this identity, that tan is just sine over cosine, I can easily find it because sine and cosine are easily found from the unit circle. So this is just sine pi over 3 over cosine pi over 3 using the identity. And then using the unit circle, sine pi over 3 is just radical 3 over 2, and cosine is just 1/2. Once you simplify, this is just radical 3. Obviously, you can just memorize this table, but I would not recommend it. It's just like a lot of work. So you can just memorize the sine and cosine for the reference angle, which are like the angles in the first quadrant. And then using the identities, you can easily find tan, cotan, secant, and cosecant. Okay, so the next thing is logarithmic functions. So logarithmic functions are very important, and they have properties that can be used to simplify them or combine them, expand them, and so on. So these are the main properties. If I have a multiplication inside of my log, I can turn it into addition. If I have division inside of my log, I can turn it into subtraction. And log of 1 is always 0. If I have an exponent inside of my log, I can take it out of my log as a number multiplied by my log. And just be careful, that does not work when you have a plus or a minus. 2 logs multiplied is not log of multiplication. 2 logs divided is not log of the division of them. Also, these exponents rule, I'm sure you know them. It's just pretty important to be able to use these exponent rule easily. So if you have like the same base multiplied with different exponent, you can just add the exponent. If they're divided, you can subtract. If you have 2 bases multiplied, you can easily distribute the exponent. And if you have 2 bases divided, you can easily distribute the exponent too. If you have an exponent to another exponent, just multiply. And this is important too. If you have a fraction as an exponent, this can be turned into roots. Also, when you have a negative exponent, to make it positive, you just take it to the denominator. And similarly, if you have like a negative exponent in the denominator, taking it to the numerator makes it positive, because we don't like negative exponents. Okay, and the last thing that I want to review is the graph of functions. So these are the main functions that are obviously gonna come up. We call them like parent functions. So you start with these, like for example, this is x squared. Using this graph, you can easily graph, for example, if you have f of x squared plus 1, you start with the parent function that looks like this, and you know that the transformation plus 1 moves the graph upward by 1 unit, so you'll have at 1 the same graph, and so on. So just make sure to review these main things. I'm sure we'll need more, but for now, these are the main things that you should remember and know. I'm going to post these notes on Brightspace, so you'll be able to see them and read them through. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll post the first video on Monday. If you have any problems, questions, feel free to email me. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And I'm excited to work with you guys this semester. And I wish you all the best of luck.